Colorado teachers are burning out.
There's never enough time in the day.
We're taking an in-depth look at the struggles that districts and teachers are facing nearly 2 years into the pandemic.
It's tough. I mean, you go through those peaks and valleys. There's tough times of years.
And concerns about Russia invading Ukraine intensify even more.
We see additional forces going to the border, including leading-edge forces that would be part of any aggression.
Some people in Ukraine are evacuating as the Biden administration tries to engage in last-minute diplomacy. Plus, Colorado grocery stores want you to skip the liquor store and pick up your bottle of wine in their stores. We begin with developing news at 11. Evacuations of civilians along Ukraine's border could be pretext to a possible Russian invasion and war in Eastern Europe. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Jason GRUENAUER. There are signs Russia isn't backing down. The Kremlin says troops will conduct drills and test ballistic missiles to show its strength. We expect to hear from President Joe Biden at 2 this afternoon about his administration's efforts in diplomacy with Russia to avoid a war in Ukraine. Elizabeth Schulze reports on the latest developments.
Amid mounting fears that Russia could invade Ukraine within days, the U.S. and its NATO allies are putting on a united diplomatic front. President Biden is set to hold a call today with transatlantic leaders, while Secretary of State Blinken and Vice President Harris are in Munich meeting with key allies.
The differences have to be resolved through dialogue, through diplomacy.
The Biden administration announcing it will sell $6 billion of new military aid, including 250 Abrams tanks, to its Eastern European NATO ally Poland. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin on the ground there today, greeting 4,700 U.S. troops and holding a call with his Russian counterpart, urging de-escalation.
There is still time and space for diplomacy.
But President Putin has yet to indicate he'll take that path, instead announcing he'll oversee a massive round of nuclear military drills Saturday, including practice launches of ballistic and cruise missiles. The U.S. now says there are as many as 190,000 Russian troops and Russian-backed separatists menacing Ukraine. Despite that military buildup, Russia insists it's drawing down its forces, releasing more video of tanks it says are departing the border.
He will maintain the capability to launch an attack at most any time.
Overnight, Russian separatists conducted more shelling against areas of eastern Ukraine controlled by the Ukrainian government. The U.S. warns Russia could stage a fake terrorist bombing or even a real chemical attack against civilians to justify an invasion.
The State Department announced Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov accepted an offer to meet with Secretary Blinken next week with an important caveat, saying it will happen provided there is no further Russian invasion of Ukraine. Elizabeth Schulze, ABC News, Washington.
Back here at home, Colorado teachers are getting burnt out 2 years after working through the pandemic. Today, we're taking an in-depth look at what challenges they're facing, including the struggle to hire and keep teachers and the ways districts are working around those shortages. We're also hearing from a teacher about what needs to change and the ways future teachers are being trained. So first, taking a look at staffing shortages. They're pretty much everywhere, but are more prominent in rural districts. As Denver 7's Veronica Acosta reports, the Morgan County School District is using every tool it has to fill vacancies.
It's been difficult. I won't lie about that.
It's not an easy time to be a school principal, but it's the job Jason Frasco loves and shows up to Monday through Friday. But in the past 2 years, dealing with teacher vacancies has been a top issue at the Morgan County School District. At Fort Morgan Middle School,
it's tough because although we're a great community and strong community, we don't have a lot of offerings that the larger cities have for our teachers, from the social aspect, the social life, those things that a lot of our young teachers are looking for, and so it is difficult.
Fort Morgan is a rural community. Right now, the middle school is down just 2 teachers. At the start of the year, 13 had to be hired. In 2020, 3, and 2019, 5 teachers.
The pool is not very deep in regards to applicants that we get from the community and from the state or across the United States.
Across the district, the need was greater. There were 50 vacancies out of the 250 teaching positions at the beginning of the year. Brian Childress, the HR director, turned to multiple options to get those openings filled. That meant hiring J-1 visa teachers,
folks coming from other countries on a 3-year visa to work for us. That's been very successful.
Bringing aboard those with alternative licenses.
Second career people who are coming out of college but didn't necessarily pursue education to begin with and are working through an alternative licensure program.
And of course, increasing pay as much as the district could.
We were able to increase base salary by $2,000. It's working, but not terrific.
But right now, a working system is all district officials can ask for. The hope? These incentives attract any and all teachers. In Fort Morgan, I'm Veronica Acosta, Denver 7.
Now, the district is also considering a 4-day school week. District officials will discuss this option in June. More than 60% of Colorado school districts already have a 4-day week, mostly smaller rural districts. And as we're talking about ways to retain and attract teachers, this idea of a 4-day work week does come up. The Brighton 27J School District is one of the largest districts in the country on a 4-day week or a 4-day week schedule. It went into effect back in 2018. Students have every Monday off while teachers take one Monday each month for planning and professional development. The superintendent tells us the schedule hasn't solved all of their problems, though, largely because they can't pay as much as neighboring districts.
Does it just come down to money? I don't think anybody becomes a teacher because they have, visions of Ferraris dancing in their head, right? They choose to teach or drive a bus or work in our kitchens or clean our buildings out of a love for kids and purpose. But at some point that gap becomes so wide that even a unique schedule in terms of a 4-day week becomes a challenge to attract folks.
Now, just this week, a survey of Denver public school teachers showed many are exhausted by their workload and the daily challenges brought by the pandemic. A lot of them are thinking about quitting unless something changes. Denver 7's Colette Bordelon spoke with one teacher in the district who says the results of that survey align with what he sees in the classroom and from his colleagues.
Drive by the Denver Center for International Studies.
This is my 16th year in the Denver public schools.
You might miss the people with a passion.
It's the only career that I feel like you really do touch the future.
Facing challenges you can't study enough for.
It hasn't been easy.
This is Kevin Adams meeting us in a rare moment outside of school.
There's never enough time in the day.
Time spent lesson planning.
How do we approach it? How do we message this to kids?
Navigating the constant changes of the pandemic.
It's much more than teachers. Like, we are psychologists, right?
And meeting the social emotional needs of students.
I've found notes at the end of my class on the floor that says, I'm thinking about killing myself.
All reasons, he says, separate teachers from other careers.
People do teaching for the love, yes. Yeah, we love our students. But, we are humans and we have to survive too.
Adams believes entry-level teachers in Denver should be paid at least $65,000 a year. If he could, he'd also like to cap class sizes at 15 or 20 kids rather than the 35 limit he says is currently the standard in Denver public schools.
You think about, what else could I do? What other jobs could I do? But I think in the end, what keeps me coming back?
Year after year, the answer is the kids. Colette Bordelon, Denver 7.
Now, even with all the challenges that teachers are facing, there are young people eager to get into the classroom. The University of Northern Colorado in Greeley is holding a Future Teachers Conference all day. The goal is to get more highly qualified educators in our state. Aspiring teachers will be able to get firsthand knowledge from experts. So now we want to hear from you. What do you think needs to be done to help our teachers and the number of challenges that they face? Email us at 360@thedenverchannel.com. Colorado's largest grocery stores want you to be able to buy wine in their stores. The Denver Business Journal reports King Soopers and Safeway submitted a pair of ballot initiatives yesterday. The ballot language will have to be approved next month. It will need more than 100,000 signatures in support for it to go on the November ballot. And if you remember, it took a while for full-strength beer to be allowed in Colorado grocery stores. That didn't happen until 2019. Before that, grocery and convenience stores were limited to that 3.2% beer. 3.2, no longer. Well, there's a virtual roundtable today marking the 80 years since the forced incarceration of 120,000 Japanese Americans. This comes as Camp AMACHE in southeastern Colorado could soon become a national historical site. The AMACHE site was an internment camp for Japanese Americans during World War II. The bill designated the camp with that new title passed the Senate earlier this week. It now has to pass the House before President Biden can sign it into law. 4 members of Colorado's congressional delegation, along with Interior Secretary Holland, will hear the stories of AMACHE survivors and their family members about what this new designation means to them. That roundtable starts in about an hour and a half. Well, still ahead, what is the favorite vegetable on the International Space Station? Well, we found out and we'll tell you. Plus, an Army veteran living in a wheelchair needed major upgrades to his home. Now nonprofits are stepping in to give that home a makeover.